Right, moving on, India-China ties, long in a state of deep freeze, show signs of being on the mend again. The bilateral meeting of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the BRICS Summit was a landmark in so many ways. Above all, the culmination of months of diplomacy to defeat tensions. Here's more.
The first structured bilateral meeting between leaders of the Asian giants in over 5 years. The bilateral talks on the sidelines of the 16th BRICS Summit in Kazan that went on for nearly 40 minutes were a perfect reflection of the achieved thaw between troops on the ground. With a call to strengthen communication and cooperation between two huge global players. Modi and Xi did have pull-asides in Bali in 2022 and Johannesburg a year later, but the elephant in the room throughout was tension at the line of actual control, taking on uglier proportions by the day. Now in 2024, the page stands turned.
Prime Minister Modi underscored the importance of not allowing differences on boundary-related matters to disturb peace and tranquility on our borders. And in this context, the two leaders noted that the special representatives on the India-China boundary question have a critical role to play in the resolution of the boundary question and for the maintenance of peace and tranquility in the border areas.
The three-day summit in Kazan is the largest gathering of world leaders in Russia in decades. And the Russian president positioned it more than anything else as a signal to the West amid the war in Ukraine. Putin had a strong message to put out.
There is still a significant risk for a crisis. This is caused not only by rising geopolitical tensions but also by the persistently rising debt load in developed nations, the expansion of unilateral sanctions, protectionism and unfair competition.
As expected, the Russia-Ukraine war and the conflict in West Asia was the focus of the conclave. Primary members of the BRICS as well as new faces of the grouping put out a universal call for dialogue and diplomacy to end the war and suffering on the ground. Beyond the wars, BRICS, representing 40% of the global population and 30% of its GDP, is about rise of the global South and cooperation in areas of their concern. The Indian Prime Minister focused on economic potential.
सीमा पार पिछले 4 वर्षों में उत्पन्न हुए मुद्दों पर बनी सहमति का हम स्वागत करते हैं। सीमा पर शांति और स्थिरता बनाए रखना हमारी प्राथमिकता रहनी चाहिए। म्यूचुअल ट्रस्ट, म्यूचुअल रिस्पेक्ट और म्यूचुअल सेंसिटिविटी हमारे संबंधों का आधार बने रहना चाहिए।
For India and for Russia, possibly the biggest takeaway of the day was here. The achieved India-China thaw, coming after months of talks at multiple levels, reflect more than anything else the power of diplomacy to change the state of relationships. There's a leaf out of this book that many global adversaries need to take. Bureau Report, WION The World.
And for more on this, WION's Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, sent us this report from Kazan in Russia. Take a look.
It was a day of big breakthrough in India-China relationship on Wednesday as the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping met. It is a meeting that is coming after a gap of 5 years, and this was in making. The Indian NSA and the Chinese Foreign Minister met on the sidelines of the BRICS NSA meeting which happened in St. Petersburg earlier this year. The Indian External Affairs Minister and the Chinese Foreign Minister also met several times, and it was looking that both sides are working towards some kind of big breakthrough, and the breakthrough came in terms of the petroleum agreement and the bilateral meeting between the two leaders here in Kazan, as it is known as the Kazan Thaw, but also the activation of the SR level mechanism of resolving border disputes. It is led by the Indian NSA and the Chinese Foreign Minister, and it is expected to meet very soon. There are more steps which are being planned, including resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, and there could be direct flights as well. And clearly it looks like that what has built up here in Kazan in terms of India-China relationship will go long way in terms of improving the relationship. With video journalist Ajit Siddhansibal for WION in Kazan, Russia.